Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Long time no see. I believe it's been 2 months since last time I sat down to actually record a video, but with the in stadium action at the Paris Olympics kicking off tomorrow, it seems like as good a time as any to come back in here and give you guys my predictions for the throwing events at the 2024 Paris Olympics. The order might seem a little wonky, but I'm going in order of when the finals will be happening in Paris. Without further ado, let's get into it. The first final we're going to see is men's shot, and this event has been absolutely bananas all year. There's been a pretty clear big three of Ryan Krauser, Joe Kovacs, and Leonardo Fabri. And we had a little preview of Paris in the London Diamond League 2 weeks ago. Fabri took the win, but I'm not putting a ton of stock into that, honestly, because it was kind of a down day for everyone. Fabri won, but only at 22:52, which is his seventh best mark of the year or something. And it was pretty much 2 weeks out from the Olympics exactly. So I feel like a lot of these guys were probably just starting their taper or about to start their taper. So they should all be in much better shape. That's kind of what Ryan Krauser echoed those sentiments after the meet as well. So Paris should be kind of a different animal to what we saw in London. And if there's one thing I learned last year, you don't pick against Ryan Krauser. There's one thing I learned going into the Olympic trial, you don't pick against Ryan Krauser. I'm not picking against Ryan Krauser. Ryan Krauser is going to win his unprecedented third straight Olympic gold in the men's shot put. He's going to do it potentially in world record fashion. I legitimately feel like that might be what it takes to take gold here with the form that Fabry and Kovacs have been in. I do think Joe is going to take silver. He has been just so confident in himself for the last 2 years about the potential that he has. And the throwing community, like we've known, he's in 24-meter shape, allegedly, for like 3 years now. It's just a matter of if he can put one together in competition and stay in the ring and blah, 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 blah. And I don't know if he's necessarily in that kind of shape, but I do think he'll be in PB shape, which is 23, at least 23 right now. I don't think it'll be enough to take down Ryan, but I do think it will be enough to beat out Fabry, who I have taking home the bronze. No knock at all, because he's going to take bronze in what I assume will be the greatest shot put competition in history. I think it's going to take at least 22.95 to get on the podium, which is just ahead of where they were in Doha. And honestly, wouldn't be surprised if all three men were over 23. I would be insane. But with the way that this season has been going, would not necessarily surprise me. So that is my final order. I wouldn't be surprised if it went in a completely different direction. But I think the top three, Krauser 1, Kovacs 2, Fabry 3, is pretty clear. Moving on to men's hammer now. Reigning world champ Ethan Katzberg of Canada is probably the biggest favorite in any of the men's throwing events because he has just been so dominant this year. He threw 84 plus in Kenya, which was the longest throw in like 18 years as his season opener. And his average through like 9 competitions is 81.10, which is further than any other man that will be competing in Paris has thrown this year. He has been dominant, and he, like I said, he got the world title last year. I think he picks up the Olympic title this year, and I'd say that's like a 99% chance of that happening, as long as something doesn't go drastically wrong. For the silver medal, I have Mikhailo Kokon of Ukraine. He has been so consistent this year, and he's really young too. Katzberg's 22, Kokon's 23, which is kind of surprising because Kokon finished just off the podium in Doha when he was 18, which is absurd. But Kokon's been throwing so well this year. He's had, I think, 4 meets over 80, and he's performed really well at World Championships and Olympics in the past. It's just been a matter of finishing right off the podium, like I said. I think this is the year he finally flips the script, and we have two very young medalists taking home gold and silver. And then I have Wojciech Nowicki taking home the bronze. He won the European Championship this year. I think he's fourth on the world list this year, maybe. But he has won medals at the last 7 straight global championships, dating back to Beijing 2015, which is crazy. And yeah, there's a lot of guys that could take that third spot. I think honestly, there's a lot of guys that could take the second spot either. I'm not like locking Kokon in or by any means, but I do feel like with the combination of what we've seen this year and historic trends, I do feel like Katzberg, Kokon, Nowicki is a pretty safe bet for the podium. And I think it'll probably take 80-50 to make the podium. I think that's about what it was in Budapest last year. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 81, 81-20, 81-30, something like that, because I do feel like all three of those guys are in that kind of shape. We'll just see how it shakes out in Paris. Moving on to the biggest favorite on the women's side, we have Valerie Allman of the U.S. in the women's discus, the reigning Olympic champion. But this is a similar situation that she's been in the last 2 years heading into world championships, and she's yet to come away with a world title. Not because she's thrown poorly, because she's run into people having the best days of their lives against her. I really hope that doesn't happen this year. Obviously, there's no way you can really predict something like that happening, like Loggy having a 4-meter PB. I think Bin Feng in 2022 had like a 2-meter PB. So you can't like factor those into your calculations at all. All I can look at is the fact that Valerie Allman has clearly been the best discus thrower in the world this year, time and time and time and time again. And I would be shocked. And honestly, I would legitimately be a little sad if she doesn't win the gold medal this year, because that would really, really stink. But I do think she ends up going back to back with Tokyo and Paris. The silver medal I have going to Jorinda van Klinken of the Netherlands. She has finished fourth the last two world championships in the discus. You need to clarify the discus because she also throws shot really well. But she has finished just off the podium 2 years in a row now. But her progression this year, I really am liking how it's going. She's gone like 64, 64 mid, 65, 65 high. And then I think her most recent competition was, I want to say 67-99 maybe. It was something really, really good. So I feel like she's got a big one in her. She's thrown 70 in the past, and I feel like she's got something to land on that podium. Bronze medal I have going to Bin Feng of China. I already mentioned her a little bit, the 2022 world champion. She's been like over 67 meters the last like 5 or 6 meets in a row for her. I think she's broken 67 in every meet since like mid-May. So she is just as consistent as she usually is right now. And she's a very good championship performer. And I think she takes home an Olympic bronze. And to make the podium, I think it'll probably be 67, 75 ish, high 67s, low 68s. Those three women are all very capable of doing that. It'll just be a matter of if they can, put together a good one in the stadium. I think Val will probably throw over 70. She can throw 70 plus in stadiums before. She's thrown she can throw really far on big stages before too. So, yeah, I think Val will probably go 70 plus, and then it'll just be a matter of where Bin and Jorinda or whoever else ends up on the podium, where they kind of shake out there. My women's hammer predictions look very different from what they would have looked like before the U.S. trials, because there were some shockers there with Janae Casnavoid and Brooke Anderson not making Team USA. With the women that are going to be in Paris, it's going to be a nail biter between Deanna Price and reigning world champion Cameron Rogers. Price won the world title in 2019 in Doha. It's going to be a great battle between those two. They've been so close, just neck and neck all year. I'm going to give a slight edge to Price, but literally this one is just an absolute coin flip. Partially, this is just so I'm not picking the favorite in every event. I do think, realistically, I think Cameron's probably going to win, but I would love to see Deanna win, especially because in 2021, she broke the American record, became the second woman to ever throw 80 meters in Olympic trials, and then only finished 8th. So winning Olympic gold here would be a pretty nice redemption for her. But those two, I think the order is going to be Deanna and then Cameron. But those two, I can say confidently, are going to take gold and silver. And then third is going to be an absolute battle. And I'm going to give a slight edge to Annette Chicken-Woke. She won the U.S. Olympic trials title with, I think it was her best throw in like 2 years maybe. She qualified for the Olympics in 2021 while representing Nigeria. And then the Nigerian Federation completely screwed her and a bunch of other athletes over. So now she's making her much deserved Olympic debut. And there's a ton of women that could end up in that high 60 or high 74, low 75 range. I think it'll probably be 75-25 for bronze, something like that. But Annette is definitely capable. She's shown she can perform on this kind of stage. She was on Team USA in Eugene. And then she also, just beat out Deanna Price to win the U.S. title. And the U.S., despite the fact that we have 5 world medals in the hammer throw in the last 3 world championships, We have never won a women's hammer medal at the Olympics. And I think that changes, and I think we win 2 this year. Back to the men's side, we've got the discus coming up, and this one, I'm describing it as the coronation of Mikolas Alekna. It'll be, I think at least, his first global title. He's clearly been the best thrower in the world all year. He broke the world record in April. He's thrown over 70, I think, 5 times now, including a couple Diamond Leagues, a couple times across Europe against his biggest competition. He's so good, and he's been really consistent. His only loss this year came at the European Championships, which may be a little bit concerning, but he also had 4 fouls that series. So I think as long as he doesn't get in foul trouble early, he'll be good to go. I have Christian Che, the 2022 world champion, silver medalist last year, taking home the silver once again. He made his Olympic debut in 2021. He came in, I think, ranked first or second in the world, finished off the podium. So I think this will be some nice redemption for him. He also was really young in Tokyo, so it wasn't that big of a deal that he didn't medal. But he's been throwing pretty well as of late. He had a couple slightly concerning Diamond Leagues earlier on in the season, but he's really ticked it up as we head towards Paris. But just with how good Alekna's been, it is going to be really, really hard to beat him. Then the bronze medal, it pains me because I am a huge Daniel Stahl fan, but he just has not looked like he's in podium contention shape with how good the rest of the world is this year. And so I think the bronze medal is going to go to Lucas Weisheidinger of Austria. I think he's going to win his second straight Olympic bronze. And, he's had a pretty good season. He's thrown over 69 meters. He's thrown over 70 in the past. He took silver at Europeans behind Chet and ahead of Alekna. So he's a really good championship performer. I think he has another global medal along with his Olympic bronze somewhere down the line. So yeah, there's a ton of guys. There's 9 guys that have thrown over 69 this year. I think 8 of them are going to be there because Reggie Jagers didn't make Team USA. But it'll be so competitive. I don't think anyone's going to be able to touch Alekna or Che. But that bronze medal is going to be an absolute battle. Unless, like, the one qualifier there is if Daniel Stahl looks like he did last year or the year before, suddenly, out of nowhere. Then he obviously can contend with Alekna and Che. But if I'm thinking with my heart or with my head and not my heart, I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll definitely take 69 mid to medal. So Alekna and Che are probably going to be in the 70s. If we can get a third guy in the 70s, that would be insane. But I'm being slightly realistic. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think bronze will be at least 69. Heading over to the men's javelin throw now. This one, you could ask 10 different people to give you their podium prediction on this one, and they would probably give you 10 different answers, but most of them would probably be the same 3 people, just in different orders. Jakub Vadlich, Neeraj Chopra, and Julian Weber. They've been the most consistent throwers in the world the last 3 years. They've been really good this year. They're 2, 3, 4 on the world list this year, and I feel like it's just inevitable, kind of, that it's going to be some combination of them on the podium. I am going to go with Vadlich taking the gold, Neeraj Chopra with the silver, and Julian Weber in bronze. Vadlich has the best season's best out of all of them, and he's performed really well at championships in the past. He showed some clutchness at the European Championships this year, and he's really, really good. But the one thing he kind of doesn't have is landing on top of a global podium. And I think he's going to do that in the grandest fashion on the biggest stage this year. Neeraj Chopra, he hasn't competed a ton this year, but he also didn't compete a ton before Tokyo, Eugene, or Budapest. So that's not really a concern. I just am giving the slight edge to Vadlich. And then Julian Weber, he's ended up in 4th. I think I don't know about Doha, but at least in Tokyo, Eugene, and Budapest, he's ended up in 4th. This is finally, I think, and I hope, honestly, where he breaks through onto his first global podium. And given the shape that these guys have been in this year and the way that they've thrown at championships in the past, I think it could take at least 88 meters to land on the podium. They've all thrown over 88 this year, and they're really, really good. So I think 88 is pretty reasonable. The Olympic record is 90, mid, I think. That might be a bit of a stretch for whoever wins, but honestly, it's not entirely out of the cards. Women's shot is another tough one. Why do these people make it so hard to predict who's going to win? Um, there's so many women that have been so good this year, and some of the ones that I'm going to start off with that aren't on my podium. Jessica Schilder has been great this year. She threw big indoors, didn't have a great indoor champs, but her last two competitions have been 1979 and 2033, I believe. So she's in really great shape, but she didn't end up on my podium because that's just how good this event is. Jada Ross, friend of the channel, she's thrown 20 this year. She looked great at trials, but I think, it's not a knock on her at all that in her first Olympics, fresh out of college, I don't think she's going to be on the podium. But just realistically, I think there are at least three women that are ahead of where she's at. And then the last one I really want to give a shout out to is Raven Saunders. Their comeback from their whereabouts suspension this year has been so much fun to watch. They had, I think, the second best throw of their career at trials to take second at 1990. And they're coming in as the reigning Olympic silver medalist. So they've performed really well on this stage before. Unfortunately, I just think that the three women I have on the podium ahead of them, a little bit better this year. I'm going to start with the gold medal that I think is going to go to the reigning two-time outdoor world champion Chase Jackson in her Olympic debut. It's a pretty similar position to where she was heading into Budapest last year. I think her season's best might be slightly better. It's at 2010 right now from trials. But what she's done the last 2 years is she's just come out and hammered a first round throw that nobody's been able to step up and match. And I'm not necessarily saying that's exactly what's going to happen in Paris, but if she can come out and put something big out there, maybe scare the competition a little bit, which she's shown she's capable of, I think she's probably got this. I don't want to say she's got this one in the bag because that would be disrespectful to the next two women I have on this podium. But if she can open with something big like she has the last 2 years, it's going to be very, very hard to beat her. I have the world indoor champion Sarah Mitten taking silver. Sarah is the world leader right now with 2068 from, I think it was in May. But really, it's more of a compliment to Chase Jackson than a diss on Sarah Mitten that I have Jackson winning the gold over Sarah. And then in bronze, it's inevitable at this point. Somehow, some way, Gong Li Zhao is going to find her way onto the global podium. I think she's missed one podium in Rio since the Beijing Olympics, I think. So she is just the model of absurd, mind-bending consistency. And she's thrown well this year. She threw 20 flat in Hengelo a couple weeks ago. And it's just like betting against her, I feel like, is just stupid because she's going to make you look silly if you say she's not going to end up on the podium. The final throwing event on the final day of track and field competition at this Olympics is going to be the women's javelin throw. And if someone tells you that they predicted this podium perfectly by the time this competition wraps up, give them $1 million because they are a genius. This competition is so wide open. There are a ton of women that have a really good shot at landing on the podium. I am going with reigning world champ Haruka Kitaguchi for the gold. Kitaguchi has had a strong season, and it hasn't necessarily been where she was last year heading into Budapest, I don't think. But she is so clutch, and she steps up in the big moments when it matters most. And I have no reason to believe that she won't be able to do that in Paris. I have Mackenzie Little of Australia taking the silver. She won the bronze in Budapest last year, but her last two meets have been the third and then the best marks of her career. So she is in the form of her life right now heading into her second Olympics, which is exactly where you want to be. I just, looking at history, give the slight edge to Kitaguchi still. And then for the bronze, I'm going with Adriana Vilagos of Serbia. She is 20 years old. She is already a two-time European silver medalist. She has broken she's broken the Serbian national record twice this year. She just threw a massive PB her last time out in London, finished just behind Mackenzie Little. Really, all of these positions on the podium are so wide open, but I think especially this bronze one, because I feel relatively confident about some order of Haruka and Mackenzie being 1-2. But that this bronze medal is so wide open when you look at like Victoria Hudson, Maggie Loneheart, and Flor Denise Ruiz Hurtado. There are so many women that could get that one. And just looking at what we've seen this year, what we've seen in years past, I am giving the slight edge to the 20-year-old Serbian, which feels a little crazy to say, but she's stepped up to the plate every time she's had to this year. I think she's had like one meet that was like 58, but almost every other one has been 62 plus. And so in an event that can be as volatile as the women's jab can be, that consistency is the most important thing. And I think it will probably take like no matter who is on the podium, I think it'll probably take 65 mid, like 65-50 to land on the podium. And honestly, like I wouldn't be surprised if there ends up being like 6 or 7 women in that 65 low range because it's going to be such a tight competition where anything could happen. And it'll just come down. I don't think it'll probably come down to the last 2 or 3 rounds, like in the finals when they go down to top 8, and it'll just be awesome to watch, and it'll be a really great way to close out what should be an awesome 9 days of throwing. All right, well, that is all I've got for my Paris throwing predictions. This was so much fun. I'm so excited the Olympics are finally here. We've been waiting so long for this, and it's going to be a phenomenal 10 days, technically, if you include the women's marathon on the last day. It's going to be an incredible 10 days of track and field. For the absolute best coverage of track and field at the games, follow Sidious Mag on every single social platform because we're going to be going crazy on there. We're going to be having 2 live shows a day. I might be popping in on some of the recap shows to talk throws, so keep an eye out for that. And I'm going to be doing a full field preview podcast episode with Chris Chavez that should be coming out today, so keep an eye out for that. And it's the Olympics. They're here. We've been waiting for 3 years. They're back. Let's go. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please follow the Instagram at PollyThrows. I rebranded again. Please follow the Twitter at PHoffMahoney. And I will see you guys next time.